And we're live, Pedro. We're back with our people. So,
Hello.
good to go. Hello.
Uh, the weekend's here. Brackets almost. Me asking Graham questions. Starting with theme of the week, moving on to Graham's team of the week, and covering just about every game. Well, every game that's going to be played this weekend. So, theme of the week, Graham. I thought we'd have no place like home because we spoke last week about Betis not being at the Benito Villamarin, and poor old Javier, who takes his deck chair to the Benito Villamarin every home game and sits outside with a transistor radio. I've learned this week that he did that in 1982 as well. The club couldn't play at home because it was one of the stadiums for the World Cup, and he did the same. Um, Now, Betis aren't doing too badly with the change. They've got 6,000 more socios in La Cartuja. Barcelona will only have 6,000 people watching them at the weekend because, yet again, they've missed another deadline. They're turning into the littlest hobo, Graham. It's potential for three different homes this season. We know the theme tune to the littlest hobo, don't we?
Well, it's sort of love my dogged problems. When we talked about this at the beginning of the season, my point of view was we know that for the Valencia game, which is the one that's coming up this weekend, they had failed to book Montjuic. And I took a stab at the fact that they might not be ready, despite having organised with La Liga to play 3 games away from home to begin the league. And everybody's making a big fuss about that because at the end of the season, they'll have 3 straight home games. Well, you've still got to play the 3 away games, and the 3 points count just as much. So I'm not too sympathetic to that argument, but the old accounting principle, which is really basic, that actually my old man used to teach me when he was doing the books, he said, well, I'm out a penny or I'm out tuppence. But he said, if you're out tuppence or a penny, for all you know, you could be out 100 quid or 200 quid. Your sum is wrong. So I figured, Pete, that for a club that were capable of being out by a year, or nearly a year, because they told us they'd be celebrating the 125th anniversary of FC Barcelona by playing at Camp Nou last November. Now, that's a swing and a miss by a big fashion. And I feel sympathy for Valencia and their travelling fans and the Barcelona socios who aren't able to get a ticket despite having the right to a ticket because there are far too many of them. Even the ones that transferred their social membership to Montjuic, they can't all get into the Johan Cruyff Stadium. Johan Cruyff Stadium we'll come back to in a second, but the mess seems to me to be really maladroitly handled in terms of, I'm not a building expert, but they've taken a long time to convert a nice looking third of the way finished stadium into one that's safe and the one that has the safety certificates. Their planning and their communications have been, as bad as one another. There's been, in the comms, there's been total obfuscation, briefings to the media. And the poor old fans are the ones that are going, well, we don't know whether we're going to get in, where we're going to be watching. And that goes for Valencia fans too. And although it might be world's tiniest violin, clubs plan based upon knowledge of a type of pitch. So I know people who punt on games in a serious way like to know the state of the pitch. And Valencia have got no experience of what it's like to play on the Johan Cruyff, how the ball rolls, does the pitch feel small or not. It's a minuscule advantage to any of the Barcelona players who've trained there or played there for the junior teams, not for Lewandowski or Rafinha, of course. But yeah, it's a mess. And if anybody can remember the theme tune to Littlest Hobo and you're online now, just whistle it away.
Is it? I mean, we talk about it being a disadvantage for Valencia. Presumably, it's not great for Hansi Flick as well. He doesn't know what dugout he's going to sit in. He's probably going to be sat on the other side, whereas at Montjuic he'd be sat on the right. I think he's moving to the left. It's not great for them, is it? The prospect of being at 3 different grounds this season if they do end up playing at Montjuic in the Champions League, which is still not decided.
Look him, sir. I mean, if he dresses to the left or the right, I suppose, if you've got that Bavarian swagger, then off, to misuse a French phrase. I think embarrassment and chagrin in modern football count for very little. And if we're honest, I think the majority of our profession, if in 1 year or 2 years, they're in a fully furnished Camp Nou and playing well, and the crowds are up, and the hospitality facilities are good, and the ticket sales are excellent, and the museum is fully functioning again, this will slide under the bridge. This will be forgotten, and therefore it makes it right to turn the focus on things right now, particularly in context. I know the people that follow Revista de la Liga here probably aren't massively interested in elections, but Laporta's gone into an election year now. He has to square the books and make the finances look better than they do very, very quickly. This stink for voters, i.e. Barcelona socios. Hello, socios to Revista. Thank you for being with us. Tell everybody else that you know to join. Um, it, it, it that stink will linger. I go back to what I said, and I think you were of the same view a couple of weeks ago. Safety first. If you're playing football in a stadium, we've had too many disasters in our lifetimes, and therefore the Camp Nou is not safety certificated. Well done to the council for saying we're not going to cow down in front of mighty Barcelona and influential John Laporta. We're going to stick to our clipboard and our hard hat and our steel toe cap boots. And I respect that and I applaud that, actually. Temptation must have been to say, oh, well, we'll turn a blind eye. But they haven't. And they made a decent job, the players and the coaches, of performing at Montjuic. I thought it would cost them an awful lot more over the last 2 seasons than it has done. They handled it, and it now transpires that although there's a financial boost for playing at your own stadium, even with a 30,000 crowd initially compared to renting Montjuic, they would have been significantly better to say something like New Year, January 26th, new Camp Nou. They didn't. They fucked up. They're having fingers pointed at them right now, and let's wait and see how they handle. Never mind Valencia. I feel sorry for Valencia. I genuinely do. The players, the analysts, and the fans above all. Let's see how Barcelona handle this tie against Valencia now.
Well, if they're not in the Spotify Camp Nou at 90,000 capacity by the start of next season, then Spotify don't pay them I think it's 20 million a season. So I know there is a theory, isn't there, that Laporta's not incompetent here. He's just being wily and he's just stringing along the sponsors, but also the fans are obviously, as a consequence of that, are suffering.
Yeah, define Wiley, because Wiley Coyote was always the one that had the Acme metal weight bouncing off his bonds, and he was the one that was run down by the bus or fell off the cliff, not the me. And therefore, I think whatever hidden agenda people accuse Laporta of, he looks bad. He looks really, really bad here. I think he looks incompetent, and it looks to the people who matter most to him, which are even above the sponsors right now. They're the socios, because they can vote him out at the next elections. He looks as if he's told untruths to them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, the Littlest Hobo theme tune was always tomorrow. Was it always tomorrow, or maybe tomorrow? Maybe tomorrow, which of course is also Joan Laporta's theme tune. Maybe tomorrow. The next game is against Getafe. The next home game is against Getafe in very few days' time. So it looks like they're going to miss that one as well. They're now talking about Real Sociedad being the first home game. And speaking of Real Sociedad, first big game this weekend. They're home to Real Madrid. You spent some time with Xabi Alonso this week, or as Xabi Alonso has been saying, I spent some time with Graham Hunt this week. Compared with other Madrid managers that you've interviewed, how does he differ?
But, well, there are several of them that via one medium or other I've interviewed, and I'd go so far as to say as each of them are different. I think my first Real Madrid manager interview was Fabio Capello in one of the training sheds on the old training ground up at Chamartin. And through Del Bosque and Ancelotti and Zidane would be Carlos Queiroz as well. So there's nothing changes, I think, from the Xabi Alonso that you or any of our socios have seen, in that he's massively articulate, very quick mentally. So the questions have to be well formed and delivered like torpedoes, because he understands we're going halfway through the question. I've had various experiences of Xabi Alonso, and it used to depend a lot. The atmosphere and the degree of um, sort of nourishing content depended a lot whether he thought you were allied with him and Mourinho, for example, or Barcelona and Pep or Tito Villanova. Uh, that's changed now because I think that he's had wider experience, and I think it was a hothouse environment when he was a Mourinho player. Um, and I think he would have as much sardonic, um, not cynicism, but distanciation with me as he does with many journalists. There happened to be some trainee journalists on the Real Madrid Periodismo Master's Diploma in the room and watching our setup and watching what it's like to build a studio, get your guests, because we also interviewed Rodrigo. And, I said, listen, these are the future. Hopefully they'll be better than some of our generation. And he sort of harumphed. And where he places me and all that morass, I don't know, but he was friendly and articulate. And it helped that I wasn't looking for a headline. We weren't saying, what's your team at Anoeta? Um, how is Militao or how has Vinicius coped with not being part of the Brazil setup? That wasn't what we were asking. We're asking about his coaching principles, his coaching ideas, how to impart them, what he's learned under various different coaches. The answer, which was fantastic, was about him and John Toshak, which some people may or may not remember him either as a cowering, fearfully scary Liverpool and Swansea centre forward. Others might not remember that he's still in not the top 5, maybe, but certainly the top 10 of coaches with the most coaching appearances in LaLiga, John Benjamin Toshak, as they call him here. So it was a fascinating experience. He'd come in after a long training session, his first training session with everybody available, not everybody working out. So we were given what I would call generous time. We were given complete freedom from all the questions that were sent in advance to the club to ask them. And therefore, I mark it as at least an 8.5 out of 10 experience. And while I can't, go blurting out all his answers here because they will come out in 2 different editions of Champions League Weekly on the television, I feel I came away knowing more, not just about his answers, but his path of direction at Real Madrid and what he expects to achieve and how quickly.
Is his predecessor Carlo Ancelotti still working for Real Madrid? Because I noticed there weren't any Real Madrid players
It's very cheeky. It's very cheeky.
In the last Brazil squad.
I don't know how to say that in Portuguese. Well, how do you interpret it? Militao is still returning from injury and has been rested once by Alonso. Rodrigo's out of form. Vinicius, I didn't understand. So, if the idea is by any cynic that Ancelotti left those footballers, Endrick doesn't yet merit his place, although it's what a big change from spring last year, where he was the coming lad and he played so well against Spain at the Bernabeu for Brazil. Anyway, I spoke to Paul Clement in the lead up to the Brazil-Chile match, and he said it's a big test. We've got a game there where we see it as a potential banana skin test in that everybody will expect us to win simply, even though Chile are last in the qualification race. He said they're the side that can make things difficult for you. So there was skin in the game for Ancelotti and his deputies, Paul Clement. And therefore, if I cannot conceive of the idea that for Brazil's games, they were so confident because they can be caught. And the 7th place is the last potential qualifying place in there. Is it CONMEBOL? So they can be overtaken for second or third, depending on the results between now and the end of the qualification process. Argentina are out of sight, which is humiliating enough for all Brazil fans and the CBF. They're out of sight. And their hero worship, because Messi was maybe playing his last ever home game, and they're world champions and blah, 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 Copa America holders. So the idea that Ancelotti, and still, I mean, help me, Pete, was, I think Chile was maybe his third game, I think, that he would risk a draw or a defeat and the opprobrium that would come to Brazil's first ever foreign manager and managerial team in order to help Real Madrid. I can't say. And also, I would say, barring injury and jet lag, most players at this time of the year, particularly Madrid's players who had such a short preseason, benefit from using games as an equivalent preseason training. So, theorizers will theorize.
They face a Real Sociedad side who haven't been over-inspiring so far this season, obviously under new manager Sergio Francisco. Who's going to play more games this season at centre forward for Real Sociedad? Sadik, who's still there, Oscarson, or Oyarzabal, who, when he plays for Spain, you'll see him at first hand, looks perfectly more than capable at centre forward at Real Sociedad, perhaps not so much so.
Well, I think Oyarzabal in his last 4 Spain games has 9 goal contributions. Listen, what you're deliberately doing is poking me in the ribs and displaying my, I'm quite short of patience and temper with players like Oscarson's and Sadiq. I'd like to believe that Oscarson's problems are to do with his age immaturity. I don't know what I'd like to believe about Sadiq. I'd like to believe that he can suddenly understand which is his left and which is his right foot and how they operate. I am in the minority of colleagues like you and around LaLiga television about not seeing enough value in Sadiq. A little bit like Rafa Mir, occasionally he'll do something and everybody will go, oh, and then he'll go, okay, set the egg timer, next 5 games, tell me what you see. I think he is dreadfully clumsy. I think that his reaction time in terms of what's going to happen, where should I be, what should I do next? Oh, there's the ball. Isn't good enough. If he stays fit, I understand that there'll be a temptation to let him try and wreak havoc and play Oyarzabal in his preferred, better position, which is wide coming in. Oscarson seems to me be flimsier by nature and still flimsy physically. And therefore, if you want me to bet right now, then by the end of the season, the player of those 3 who will have played most often at centre forward, barring fucking injury, please don't let that happen to Mikel Bigfoot Oyarzabal, is Mikel Bigfoot Oyarzabal.
Second big game of the weekend, Atletico Madrid against Villarreal. What was the worst news this week for Atletico Madrid fans? The fact that Norway won 11-1 and Sørloth didn't score, Almeida being injured, or the appendicitis for Baena, which rules him out, I think, for a month.
Well, my perception is the worst news is that Diego Simeone is still the coach. Of those, Sørloth will score. Point, full stop. I think his body language betrays the fact that he's deeply unsure of his coach. He's deeply unsure whether he made the right decision in staying. So there might be a problem there. Not scoring in a 10-goal margin win, I'm not worried about at all. I am a little bit worried about his body language and his attitude and how quickly he shows his distemper at colleagues when they don't square on the ball properly. Almeida, I've got very, milky tea views on, because I don't think he's done almost anything in his career thus far for us to say, "Boss, it's a right problem. It's a big disaster that he's absent." I'd like to see him over months, not 2-3 games, disproving that, coming of age, flourishing under Simeone, leading, drawing Atleti higher up the pitch, committing defenders down his touchline. I'd love to see that. At the moment, it's it's not a massive problem that he's temporarily absent. Baena is arguably with certainly with Hanchko, the footballer who might have had a determining new identity available to Atleti, how they use the ball, how well they link and draw players together, because the coach isn't, in my opinion, capable of doing that anymore. Baena's football is supposed to be menacing, again, drawing opponents to him, good at linking the departments of the team because he's happy to drop and receive and play and go and triangle and back. And oh, fuck, look where we are. We're suddenly only 30 metres out from their goal instead of 25 metres out from our own goal. His assist count, his dead ball skills, his ability to shoot from distance, his commitment to winning, his nastiness, all of those things of the three you've mentioned are the ones that particularly after, let's say it's another month out, where's his sharpness? How long does he need to get ready again? And frankly, I think Luis de la Fuente would like to have him going to the United States and Canada and Mexico for the World Cup with a good season under his belt. And this is only going to be, Halloween, early winter, where we're saying, like, where is this fellow? Where's he at now? But of the three you've mentioned, Baena's absence is by far the biggest problem.
Villarreal, the rivals, they've started really well. A bit surprising to see Etera Young leave the club. He's gone to Levante, but they brought in Mikatadze. Is that a net gain?
Oh, massive. De Jong, again, has got everything still to prove. And again, you can see a little bit of pace. There have been a couple of goals over the last few months where you go like, oh, that shows a lot of promise. He isn't at the level of Tierno Barry, who went and who raw as fuck at this stage last season. And Marcelino came out and said, promise you don't see what I see in training. And frankly, from that point onward to the end of the league, Barry looked like a very explosive, very interesting, often very threatening footballer. Young, for me, hadn't reached that level. Now, Mikatadze, I really like watching. I think, although he played different styles at Ajax and Metz and Lyon, where I've seen most of him is for Georgia. Georgia are under Willy Sagnol are capable of playing very aggressive, high up the pitch, dominant football if they think the rival can't cope. But they're equally extremely good at sitting quite deep, but still not waiting forever and then trying to escape. They will wait, suck you in and go at you, then do it again and do it again. They caused Spain a whole heap of problems. Okay, the summer before this one in the European Championship, going 1-0 up. It's the only game that Mikatadze in that tournament didn't score in. And I think the reason I talk about the comparative nature of how Sagnol has Georgia playing, I think Marcelino, the modern version of Marcelino, which I hope you'll nod or raise a quizzical eyebrow to agree with me, is different from the one we got used to in that it's much more ebb and flow than we were ever used to before. Mm-hmm. The formation is now not set 4-4-2. And for a while, since he took over at Villarreal, I kept waiting for him to go, okay, lads, there's a slap round the pus. You haven't learned that, I want is solidity above everything. He seems to be happy to allow a big degree of ida vuelta, back and forward. Mikatadze loves that. I think his best position, although he can play and has played left wing coming into the middle, his best position is at centre forward. I think that they've got a penalty taker now to nudge Moreno out of the way. He takes penalties well. He gets more headed goals than his stature should automatically deserve. He can score with his left. He's dominantly right-footed, but he is somebody who's athletically quick and mentally quick about how to profit from another team being caught undressed, which Villarreal like to do. He'll be served. They've got really interesting wide players, Villarreal. He's quite good at taking service from the wings. But on the break, I expect to see Mikatadze, and his assist count over his career is good. He's got something like 20-something goals in nearly 40 games for Georgia. And for a side like Georgia, that record is exceptional. His domestic record in French football could have been more prolific. And I think he's better. You asked Etayong Mikataji by a million miles, about to turn 25, still not reached the peak of his career, and much more experienced than Etayong. And Etayong is just down the road. They can watch him all the time. Levante are well coached. I think it's been a really smart piece of business by Villarreal.
Sounds exciting, Mikatachi. Right, we've got to that part of the show now, Graham, of the recording, which I know you enjoy. It's the time to ask, why don't they sing this? We've already asked why the Rayo fans don't sing the Moldy Peaches, Jorge de Frutos, why the Atleti fans don't sing, what was it? His friends are more than fond of Robin Lenormand. This week, we're going back to 1983, Madonna's hit single, Borderlass, or as she liked to call it at the time, Borderline. This was from her debut album, eponymous debut album. It was Reggie Lucas who produced the album. He also wrote
Reg.
Borderline. Well, he sounds like a centre
bus driver.
Borderlass is trying to sign from the third tier. He was actually a guitarist with Miles Davis tour band as well. And he also worked, it says here, with Robert Fleck.
Kind of blue, kind of Getafe strip. It's all
I think Robert Fleck, I think that should be Roberto Flack. But the chorus feels like I'm going to lose my mind. You just keep on pushing my love over the borderline. So what we want to hear from the Getafe fans feels like we're losing all our players, but you just keep on pushing our team because you're the borderlass. Borderlass. You're the borderlass. So there we go. This week's
Shooby dooby doo is all I can say to that, Pete. Shooby dooby doo. Brilliantly composed, brilliantly delivered. You deserve your sleeve notes. When Madonna next brings something out, which whatever it is she brings out this time, because we've seen everything, you deserve a sleeve note.
Last of the big three in action this week, Barca. We've already talked about it against Valencia. For what you've seen so far, we'll get straight into Hansi's biggest problem. Really, we said about it and talked about it in the summer, losing Inigo Martinez. Have you seen the answer yet? Have you seen what he's thinking? What the potential solution is? Shuffling that defensive pack.
I think that he may be might be shoved against Valencia into a solution that he wouldn't have chosen otherwise, because he really likes Eric Garcia at right back. Eric Garcia, mad though, is just playing much better at right back right now than Koundé. So the question, given that we're pretty sure that De Jong and Gabri will be out, and therefore who's going to be Pedri's partner at Pivote in the 4-2-3-1 system, Pivote or central midfield, because they play a system that goes like that rather than two guys sitting and organising. And there's a really clear possibility, and one I hope he favours, which is Marc Casado. Casado is a fantastic footballer. He's been underused by Flick. Again, I've got a side bet because Spain should be thinking about taking him to the World Cup. He was marvellous when they were trying to qualify for the Nations League and man of the match against Switzerland. But if he doesn't use Casado there, then it's Eric Garcia next to Pedri. And he likes playing Eric Garcia there. Eric Garcia has said that he's not that mad about it. But if he uses him there, then one of the clear things that can happen is that Koundé goes back to right full back, and Kubarsi retains his right side of central defence position where he flourishes. He's much, much better. And Christensen plays at left centre back. And Christensen's not naturally out and out left footed like Inigo Martinez is. But I think Christensen is the number one solution. I'm wholly opposed aesthetically and tactically to Kubarsi playing out of position at left centre back. He can do it, but that doesn't mean you should do it. So, for my taste in the current squad, until we see Gerard Martin make howling errors at left centre back, just like he makes at left full back, and probably will do, because I think rather than Jofre Torrent starting against Valencia, I think it'll be Gerard Martin. now registered with LaLiga, stayed behind at training for extra work during the international break. And therefore, I suspect, given that Alex Balde is out injured, it's probably going to be Martin at left back, Christensen at left centre back, Kubarsi at right, and either Eric or Koundé at right back, I guess, depending on what he sees, Flick sees in the judgment between Casado and Eric Garcia. And win, lose or draw, it'll be a pretty significant night on Sunday, isn't it? On Sunday night for young Casado, because if he doesn't start this game, he can see that he's got an even bigger fight on his hands, unjustly, than he already perceived he did.
In sort of more general terms, does Hansi think he's got a hunger problem because they won the league last season?
He talked about ego, didn't he? And ego undermines success was his mad elliptical quote after the draw at Rayo Vallecano. I think managers doing that and hinting at things is corrosive and stupid. It's not. These are words I have never yet used about Hansi Flick. I think it was a big mistake to do what he did. He's left everybody pointing fingers, players feeling got at and defending themselves in public with Spain. It was a bad mistake. It was a bad mistake to either say nothing or say what you feel. Come right out and say it. Clear the air, having already said it to your players first. So, whatever Hansi Flick thinks about hunger, I will tell you two things about which I'm sure. One, there has been, I don't know why, a bust-up between Fermin and Gavi. They were bosom buddies. Fellow Andaluz, similar age, similar trajectory, both utterly committed for whatever reason to a badge, that's several hundred miles away from where they were born and brought up. They're at dagger's throne at the moment, and I don't know why, but they are. And secondly, I think, and I ventured this before at the beginning of the season, that whatever Marc-Andre ter Stegen's mistakes and flaws are, the way that particularly Flick, but also the club, treated him has resonated badly with the players. And I think we've seen a sulky group that isn't at full tilt yet. If it's hunger, we'll know over a longer course. The market closing is a positive. Those players who've gone and seen other footballers and their situations and pulled together for the various national teams will come back better. It's unusual to say this, but they'll come back better armed than they went away. Usually there's the FIFA virus for big clubs. I expect Flick, who's good individually and with the group, to put the problems to bed gradually. I don't think that Barcelona switch on a tide of instant brilliant football. But I do think he resolves the problems. And if you're asking me, I'm willing to put my neck on the line and say I don't think it's hunger, personally.
Well, back to the immediacy of Sunday. Valencia haven't beaten Barcelona away for 9 years. I think the last time they did it, 2016, Rakitic own goal, Santi Mina, meant that Messi's late goal didn't mean anything. Can they do it this weekend?
I'd have thought that these are prime conditions. Barcelona have been moderate, not very good, very poor in their 3 league games. It can't impress Flick's own players that nobody knew where they were playing the match until yesterday. Yesterday being Wednesday. I think in football terms, Barcelona still have more than enough, because I think that Valencia are still, although well coached, and they won't get. I mean, they were treated like a rag doll by Barcelona last season. There were the 3, I think, occasions when this clever coach who ultimately did a brilliant job at Valencia could also looked a little bit under threat. I think that Barcelona have enough to win, but if there's a shock coming, by Monday morning, we'll be able to retrospectively analyse why. Absences, lack of form, problems in the Barcelona camp, mix-ups over where the game's going to be played, and a hungry Valencia who kind of now say, yeah, this is our opportunity.
Let's get into the last 7 games, Graham. One question for each game. Sevilla are home to Elche. Is Matthias Almeida going to get Junior off the hook?
I think so, because although the fans aren't going to quickly stop singing Junior VTA, which is about Del Nido Jr., the current president, get out of the club, is the chant that they absolutely love singing. I think that from the research I've done, from the contact I've had with one person who was trying to bring a player that Almeida wanted there, my opinion is that he is a decent coach strategically. I think he's going to prove to be a good unifier of the group. I'm one of those who, although looking back, he scored wonderful goals, I think the group won't be worse without him. If they can keep Vargas fit, they've got an equal effect there. I liked, okay, the weakest team in the league right now by a distance is Girona, and therefore Sevilla winning there on the last game before the international break isn't a break out the champagne moment, but they were organised and disciplined and diligent and knew exactly the game plan. Is he going to get Junior off the hook? That might be too much to ask, but I think he's going to prove to be a worthy Sevilla coach in the current situation.
Getafe home to Oviedo. Getafe will have 7 new signings. All the players that Bordalas couldn't be registered until they sold Uche. But my question for you, Graham, is about Oviedo. Are they going to be this season's lowest scorers? They didn't sign a striker in the window. I've got the numbers here from last season: 56 goals. They were the lowest scorers in the top 8 in the second division last season.
It's pretty frightening. There's another market to come. We both know that their resources financially appear to be either lower than they should arithmetically be, or they are being ultra careful to avoid financial fair play problems. And as such, that can take you down. But if you really want me to say, will they definitely score fewer than Girona? Because I think that's the competition. I truthfully don't know. When Hussein scored the other day, he turned and gave it, "You want some?" to Paunovic's coach, Put me on the bench, will you? I don't know if the Egyptians are going to give enough goals. I don't know is the answer to your question. Girona worry me monstrously. Yes, things can click now that the transfer market has closed. They don't look very liable to score. If I have to flip a coin between the two of them, I'm going to buy your ticket, Oviedo, yes.
Athletic at home to Alaves. Uri, 10 months of suspension, a 10-month ban confirmed. Do you have some sympathy for Uri Alvarez?
Why?
Well, because he had testicular cancer a good few years ago now. Part of the consequences of that, part of the consequences of the treatment were hair loss. He got himself on some sort of medication to help with that. He still takes it. He says that he didn't have it before the semi-final against Man United. His wife was taking a similar sort of medication, so he thought, well, I'll take hers, it won't matter. And her medication has something in it that was then...
I think I feel sympathy for Athletic. It's one of the positions where they can't do with this situation. I think that he can feel relatively lucky that he'll be able to play by April, because some of the ban is retrospective. There's been some sympathy shown to him in the sentencing. But in this day and age, all athletes are trained to, within an inch of their lives, about saying anything that has chemicals in it, ask your doctor. He sees the club doctor every day. I do believe that occasionally top athletes of whatever discipline will make mistakes. And I don't believe that every failed drugs test means a cheat. But do I have sympathy for him? Not really, Pete. Not really.
Celta are home to Girona. Graham, if you could only watch one Brian for the rest of your life, would you go Zaragoza or would you go Gil?
This is one of the most horrible questions you've given me yet, because Zaragoza's a show pony, brainless. When it happens, you're like, whoopee. But like fireworks and Guy Fawkes, it's once a fucking year. Do you know what I mean? The rest of the time, you're like, oh, let that firework off. Shut up. I'm trying to watch the TV. And Brian Hill, I used to really enjoy at Eibar so much. I enjoyed his contribution to Sevilla winning a European trophy. And at Girona, his self-indulgence indulgence and his ability to go down wrong tunnels, and it's a fucking beauty of a question. I mean, listen, if for nothing else, then he's the seventh Beatle. After Billy Preston and their producer George Martin, I'm gonna have to go for Brian Hill, but fuck me, it's a tight squeeze.
Levancia home to Betis. Did Anthony clean the transfer window with holy water, with that soul cleansing return?
I think that don't we have to praise Betis for their doggedness, and like they wouldn't let the subject go, they wouldn't let it lie.
I wouldn't let
And
it.
what was on the end of the stick was the best player in their squad at a time when Isco's still out. They got Manchester United's price right down. They got 6,000. How many did you say? 6,000 extra socios paying their season tickets.
Yeah.
Although they lost Athletic, there's 65,000 people coming through the gate at Cartuja. They've got European football. Some of the money will be recouped there. I think it's a brilliant piece of business. I think they owe Anthony a little bit for going like, yeah, I'm sticking to the last fucking second because that's where I want to go. And the other thing is, if not just judging on last season's evidence or his Ajax form, I'm going back to Benny McCarthy and what he told me, that Anthony lives to compete, not just lives to be on the ball. He's a fighter, trains hard, hates to lose, loves to win. Therefore, I don't expect to see him saying, I'm in my comfort zone now. Brilliant, party. I expect to see ferocity of attitude and brilliance of play, and Betis fans to love him again. And if he's on the opposite wing quite a lot of the time to Abde or Garcia, width and vertical football from your mate Pellegrini's side.
Monday's game, last game, Espanyol against Mallorca. Graham, did anyone have Mallorca dressing room meltdown, Vipers Nest, bitch fest on their start of the season bingo card?
Well, what? No. Truthfully, we saw Arasati and Samuel Costa. Was it last pre-season? I think just as he'd taken over, with Samuel Costa, Arasati on the pitch during a friendly, and Samuel Costa verbally abusing him and storming off, and they kissed and made up. And although Samuel Costa is just he's a mongrel, of his behaviour is mongrel. They kind of sorted out, and he's still at the club, albeit injured. And when you get a footballer who goes, on social media and goes, I wanted to play, my family were all there, then I'm with the coach.
This is Danny Rodriguez, yeah?
It is Danny Rodriguez. Coach didn't play me at the Bernabeu, and I had so many people there to see me, and my pride will stay until I fucking shut up and go and prove it in training and the match. At 34, you've been through worse than this. Again, Scrooge me up if you like, but, Arasati is not the most charismatic man, but I think he's decent and honest. And, what was you lose one handbag, you lose two, misfortune, blah, blah. If players keep coming out against him, then eventually the board and, the owners will be going, okay, maybe there's something to this. But at the moment, I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was an unedifying spectacle. And Danny Rodriguez will have to eat humble pie if he wants to get back in the team.
Well, as a Mallorca player in your team of the week, we always round off with Graham's team of the week, different criteria every week. He's only told the criteria now before recording. Lots of doom and gloom around the closing of the window, the talent drain, but Graham's come up with 11 reasons to be cheerful. It's a team of La Liga new faces, yeah, Graham? So, well,
listen. The credit here goes to the interceptor, Pete Jensen, because these tasks that he sets for me, I can't speak for any of you, have been real fun so far, and this was ultra stimulating because your idea, Pete, was what? Like, the player needs
players that we didn't see in Primera last season. So they either weren't here, they were abroad, they were in the second division, they were out on loan somewhere, they were sat on the bench because they couldn't play for different reasons. One of them's in your team, I've noticed.
One per club.
And also, yeah, just one player per club. So no.
So I got this team, and I was immediately, I'd like to coach this team. This team would minimum win the Copa del Rey. Listen, I could have a team of duds, and me as coach, and we'll win the Copa del Rey anyway. But this is a good team. Is the overall point I'm trying to make. And it helps expose the fucking scumbag way that Las Palmas treated Alvaro Valles. Over a year ago now, he wanted to join Betis. Whatever he did about that, or whatever Betis did, pissed Las Palmas off so much that although they paid him his basic wage, they kept him out of the team for a year. So he didn't play in La Liga last season. He's a very good goalkeeper, and he beats the Australian Matt.
Dominic? No.
No, Matt. He came back. He used to play at Real Sociedad, and he's now gone to Levante. We'll come back to him, but he beat him out of the team for me. So Alvaro Valles is in goal. Come on, Matt. What almighty. Australian national keeper, went to Belgium, played for Real Sociedad. Pete knows I've had a technological Armageddon since 5 o'clock this morning, so my brain isn't really working very well. But it's a back three, Pedro.
Okay.
Where I've put, although Dean Howson is often now playing left centre back for Real Madrid and Spain, and played often at left centre back for Bournemouth last season. He was at Bournemouth last season. The fact that he played in the World Club Cup does not count. And I've got him at right of the back three because Hansko is very much more left-footed than Dean Howson. Hansko, who scored in a Slovakia win over Germany, Germany's first ever away defeat in 54 away qualifying matches for the World Cup. So the Slovakian who came from Feyenoord and wasn't at Leti last season is in the centre with a guy who I think will be a sleeper hit at Sevilla, Gabriel Suazo. So that's us got Betis, Real Madrid, Atleti, in the case of Hansko, and Suazo, Sevilla. And I think the Chilean can be deployed in so many different roles. He's got assists and a moderate number of goals, but he's fast, he's aggressive. He's the type of footballer that Sevilla used to, from the transfer market activity, churn out by the dozen. And I think he'll be very welcome at the Nervión this season. The controversial one, because he did, I'll admit, have 34 total minutes in 2 games for Real Madrid last season. But the little carrot top, Victor Munoz, is at Osasuna. But simply because you love him so much, I hope you're going to allow this one.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank
I
you.
have 34 very special minutes as well, weren't they, for various reasons.
The 32 in the Classico were exceptional. That's for absolute sure. Another one that you, I think, have been won over pretty quickly by, because Victor Munoz is at Osasuna, so no duplication of club yet. In the middle of midfield, Leander Dendoncker, who was at Aston Villa last season, Oviedo now, and looks like their main goal supply, even though he plays in organising midfield, the Belgian international. Welcome home. A footballer I like very much indeed, who once scored a minimum at least 3 penalties in a 4-1 win over Real Madrid at the Mestalla. Carlos Soler, welcome back to Spanish football from London, where he was on loan at West Ham, I think, and Paris Saint-Germain, where he's been for quite some time now. He's joined Real Sociedad. That's another club ticked off. Soler's a fabulous guy. Really nice, interesting, bright man. And fuck me, do Real Sociedad need another 6 or 7 players like him right now? We go back to, a sort of an anarchic sort of wild boy footballer that I talked about, that Villarreal have signed, Renato Vega from Chelsea. He is not everybody's cup of tea. He is not somebody with positional discipline, but he can really play. He can really pass. He can dribble. He strikes the ball from set plays. He strikes the ball from distance. If he and Marcelino don't fall out irrevocably, which is a possibility, he's going to give us fun this season. And he's in my midfield next to Carlos Soler, with the other wide player being Virgili, who moved from Barca Atleti and didn't play Primera football for Barca last season, but is now at Mallorca. Won't play at left wing back for Mallorca, for Arrasate, but he's 2-footed, so he's sometimes been used as a right wing back or a right defender. More often, he's used as a left-sided attacker coming onto his right foot. Hence the reason that I put him there, because with Suazo behind him, he's not going to have that much defending to do. So that's my 5-man centre of the pitch. Up front, fairly obvious, because 2 clubs that I haven't picked anybody from yet were FC Barcelona. And although Rashford has had a pretty discreet start to his competitive season, in Korea, and against Como at the famous Johan Cruyff training ground pitch, he played pretty well. He's been liked well enough by Flick and his staff in his behaviour and attitude so far. And he was the best striker that had been brought over to La Liga ahead of Mikatautsi arriving. But given that I put Vega in, Mikatautsi doesn't make it. If I'm completely honest, and I hadn't been allowed Vega, or Vega was injured for 6 months, it would have been Mikatautsi ahead of Rashford. But Marcus, you're in the team, accompanied by Joel Roca. And there is a danger that I get too eulogistic about this kid who was playing second division football last season and has been by a distance Girona's best footballer this season. Scored in midweek for the Spain youth setup. Wonderful on the ball, daring. He's clearly got a good brain about what I do is not all for show. Still very slender. Still an enormous amount to develop and learn, but thrilling. A very good footballer, and he's up front with Rashford, and that team would smash opponents.
Was he at Mirandés last season, along with all the other loanies that are now playing?
Doesn't everybody go there to learn their football? So he was at Mirandés in the second division last season, and right now he'll be probably wishing he was back there because the wages are better when you're playing Primera. But Girona are such an awful mess right now. He must be thinking, fuck me, what have I done? What have I done?
Graham's team of the week, La Liga new faces, Valles in goal. Great to have him back. Victor Munoz and Virgili flying down the flanks. Housen, Hansko and Suazo in the centre of defence. Vega, Dendonka and Carlos Soler, good to him back as well in the centre of midfield. And up front, Rashford and Joel Roca. Pretty good, Graham. Pretty good.
Roca roll.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, all that remains to be said, Graham, is what we say every week. Adios, amigos.
Stay tuned.